Skyrim is a game built around some of the best combat and weapons mechanics in RPG history. So, being the smooth-brained primate that I am, I decided not to use any of it. No swords, no bows, and no offensive magic. If I need to deal damage, I have to use this. A dented, probably unwashed iron pot. Is it even possible to beat Skyrim like this? Will I become a cast iron menace, or just be a moron bonking dragons on the head with cookware? Let's find out. It started out just like any other run in Skyrim. Cart ride,
Finally awake.
this guy gets shot, and this guy loses his head. Next up was creating the character. And obviously, there was only one man fit for such culinary shenanigans. The master of kitchen tomfoolery himself, Gordon Ramsay. After that, a dragon arrived and saved me from my head removal ceremony.
It's like a fucking thong left over from a fucking night out in Vegas.
Now, you're probably wondering, how am I going to use a kettle as a weapon? Well, for that, I need something in Redwater Den. So, after ignoring all the enemies in Helgen, I made my way there. Unfortunately for me, the road there is long and full of wolves, which is a bit of a problem considering I didn't yet have a way to defend myself. I managed to dodge the wolves, and once I arrived at Redwater Den, got myself a free sample of skooma, drank it, and promptly passed out. They might have roofied me, but they unknowingly locked me in a cell with exactly what I came for, a telekinesis spell tome. Now, the spell allows you to pick up and throw objects, and if your thrown object hits someone, it deals a little bit of damage. Not a lot unfortunately, but maybe just enough to complete the main story. Now, once I learned the spell, I tried to throw a pot at the vampire holding me prisoner, but I ran out of magicka after the first throw. I tried to pick up my pot and run away, but I got set on fire and they just put me straight back in the cell. So, the second time I made just a straight run for it. I managed to get out, although I did nearly get eaten by wolves yet again. After my experience with vampire Bill Cosby, it was clear that I needed to do some training, as currently I couldn't realistically throw more than 1 or 2 pots every few minutes. In order to achieve this, I went to Whiterun and repeatedly threw pots at Dragon's Reach for about an hour or so until my alteration skill reached 50. Additionally, every time I leveled up my main level, I threw all the points into magicka to increase my pool. During this time, I also picked up the dual casting perk and the perk that allows me to have a 50% magicka reduction for adept spells, as that was the category the telekinesis spells falls under. So, training complete, I went to Jarl Bolgrif to inform him of the dragon attack at Helgen. He told me to speak to Farengar, who told me to go to Bleak Falls Barrow to retrieve a dragonstone for him. On my way up from Riverwood, I encountered some bandits in this tower on the side of the mountain. It's here that I encountered one of the main challenges in this run, Ricochet. Anytime I wanted to fight outdoors, any slight miscalculation would lead to my pot going flying down the hillside, and I'd have to immediately sprint down after it or risk losing the pot forever. At the top of the mountain, I fought the bandits outside the barrow's entrance. They were thankfully low leveled, but I of course had to go chasing after one of my kettles again. On the inside of the barrows, I didn't have to worry about Ricochet so much. So with some kiting to regain magicka, I managed to defeat the bandits and Drogo fairly easily. But then I ran into this. A spider's web. Now, in any normal Skyrim run, you'd just cut through it with a sword or use magic or a bow. But I can't use any of these. And unfortunately, throwing a pot at it does nothing. I tried to just sprint through it, I tried getting around it, I even tried climbing it. Google didn't turn up any answers, and I thought that was where my run was going to end. So, depressed, I went and took a shit, but that's when it struck me. What if I could get one of the bandits to cut it for me? I quickly reloaded a save, this time leaving one of the bandits alive. I dodged his attacks until I got to the web, where I climbed it again, and after some manipulation, managed to get him to cut it. I was finally through! I beat down the spider that jump scared me, only to realise that there was another web. No problem though, I had the tech to deal with this. So I once again reloaded a save, this time making sure the bandit didn't get eaten by the average Australian spider. Once again, I climbed the web, and after a bit more fandangling, managed to get him to cut it for me. The next segment of Bleak Falls Barrows was rather uneventful. However, I did find out a rather neat quirk of dropping items in some of the interiors in this game. Sometimes, the pot spawns inside you, glitches out, and fucking kills you. Besides that though, I got through and killed the Draugr Overlord fairly easily, although in a large room a few of my kills went bouncing around. I honestly thought he'd pose more of a challenge, but he was really no match for my pot jitsu. With him defeated, I grabbed the Dragonstone and brought it back to Farengar. Whilst he was droning on with Delphine, we were informed that a dragon had been spotted at the Western Watchtower, so I gathered up my kettles and ran on down there. Soon after I arrived, the dragon returned, which is where I found out that dragons in Skyrim are presumably made of rubber, as they send my pots into the fucking stratosphere. Even though I was playing a midfielder and chasing after the pots most of the fight, with the help of the Whiterun guards, the dragon was taken down rather swiftly. As I returned to Whiterun, I was summoned by the Greybeards. So, I headed straight up to Fellstar Farm to begin making my way up the 7,000 steps. It was on my way up that I realised I still had a bit of a magicka problem, as there was a bear right at the start that I simply didn't have the magicka to defeat. Luckily, I managed to bring it back into the farm, and with the help of the farmers, I managed to kill it. I decided that for the rest of the journey up to High Hrothgar, I needed to avoid confrontation, so I quickly scampered up, dodging wolves, spiders, and frost trolls. Once I got up there, they initiated me, which, yes, did involve me using the Unrelenting Force shout on the Greybeards, which is an offensive shout that deals damage. But they didn't receive any damage from it, so I would argue that I haven't failed the challenge just yet. With my initiation finished, they sent me to retrieve the horn of Jorgen Windcaller. Given the bear encounter, I knew that it was time for me to do some upgrades that I've been putting off, so I went back to Whiterun to cheese the enchanting skill. As it turns out, Bethesda did a little economical oversight in Whiterun. If you purchase iron ingots and leather straps from Adrienne and make them into daggers, you can enchant them with filled soul gems you buy from Farengar and sell them back to Adrienne for a profit. Farengar's inventory can even be reset by quick saving, throwing a pot at him, and then loading the save. I spent an afternoon doing this, and it got me to 100 enchanting. The question was, what clothes do I put these enchantments on? I know. Chef's clothes, of course. So I made my way to Solitude and picked up some from the clothing store. I found an item earlier that had a Fortify Alteration enchantment on it. This enchantment reduced magicka cost of my pot throwing by 22% per piece, and I put it on my hat and tunic. I also put another enchantment on my ring and necklace that reduced it by a further 22 and 14% respectively. All up, this made it cost 80% less to chuck a pot. With this significant upgrade, I made my way to Ustengrav to retrieve the horn for the old men. It was going swimmingly and I made steady progress. I zoomed through the Dragonborn gate, killed the spiders, and there was another web. No worries, I'll just go reload a save and go get the Draugr to come cut it like the last one. Come on buddy, follow me! Yep, just my fucking luck. There was a bloody invisible pathing barrier that stopped the Draugr being able to walk through the gate. I fart-assed around trying to get him to power attack through the wall, but that didn't work. Though I figured out that if I just hold a pot in my hands, I could push him past the barrier, using a kettle and staying true to the challenge. Unfortunately, the hour that I spent trying to get him past that barrier was in vain. There was no way for me to climb up on this web, and there was no way to get him to cut it. Believe me, I tried everything I could think of. I spent a good another hour or so here trying to get him to cut it, but eventually I had to acquiesce. I had to use a melee weapon to cut the web. Being a chef, I decided to use a knife. Whilst technically I hadn't dealt damage to someone, it still felt like a failure. But the run was still alive, so I dusted myself off and went and picked up Delphine's note. I met her in Riverwood before going with her to kill a dragon. The actual fight wasn't too bad, as Delphine actually sponged most of the damage for me. But yet again, the rubber dragons love bouncing my pots off into oblivion. I mean, I say it wasn't too bad, but the first time I attempted this fight, I got munched and thrown across the field. The second attempt, I'm not even really sure what happened. I think the kettle got jammed up in its armpit and it vibrated the dragon to death. Big up creation engine jank, I guess. With the dragon dead, I sucked its soul and returned to the Greybeards to complete the Windcaller quest. Next up was the infiltration of the Thalmor embassy. Rather rudely, Delphine wouldn't let me wear my chef's outfit, so I donned whatever this is and began socialising. I have absolutely no idea why part of the map is just disappearing here. I tried to fix it, but couldn't find a fix. The missing map didn't cause too much of an issue, but I did have to no-clip and teleport my inside man through as the door was, well, not there, and I couldn't progress without doing it. Delphine not only took my chef's outfit, but she also took my pots. Luckily, I managed to find one in the kitchen, but upon accidentally entering combat, I panicked, threw the pot into a crowd of enemies, and promptly decided it was best to just flee. Once I made it to the other building, the Thalmor just decided not to pursue me for some reason, so remembering to actually crouch this time, I snuck through grabbing the intel I needed. I managed to pickpocket the key off this guard before making good my getaway. I went back to Delphine before putting back on my chef's outfit, never to remove it again. Next, she wanted me to go to find some old member of the Blades named Esbern. I managed to find him hiding in the sewers of Riften. I convinced him to come back to the Blades, but on the way out we were set upon by Thalmor agents, who I swiftly killed before getting Esbern safely back to Riverwood. With Esbern back, we went to this old temple with this really cool looking head, and here we learned that Alduin, the dragon from the beginning, was trying to destroy the world. I took this information back to the Greybeards, who told me it was finally time to meet their fifth and final member up at the top of the mountain. They taught me the Clear Sky Shout, and I made my way up the mountain. It's here that I found out that Parthenax, the leader of the Greybeards, is actually a dragon. Makes sense, I guess, though, with them using dragon shouts and all. We had a good old yap about how to beat Alduin, and then he sent me on a mission to retrieve an Elder Scroll. I really did just rely on a lot of fetch quests in this game. Like, don't get me wrong, great story, but I don't know, it just feels a little disjointed to have a big epic moment that just turns into errand running. So, with my errands to run, I made my way to Alftand. Being a Dwemer ruin, it was full of steam-powered spiders and spheres. The spiders are rather easy to deal with, as they just satisfyingly smash apart when you throw a pot at them, but the spheres on the other hand are too quick to just kite around, so I had to make use of the high ground.
I have the high ground!
I did manage to do this little sequence skip, but I ended up turning the wrong way and ended up just clearing out the sequence I was supposed to have skipped. Once I went the right way, I came across my first encounters with the Falmer. They proved to be quite deadly. I slowly made my way through, smacking Falmer carefully and methodically, until I eventually came across this, a Dwarven Centurion. I tried to take it head on, and I panicked quite hard when it used its steam attack on me, but after running to retrieve a ricocheted pot, I realised it was actually quite slow moving, so I could just keep it at arm's length and then I chipped away its health. Centurion taken care of, I made my way down the elevator to Blackreach. I knew that trying to fight with pots in here would be an absolute nightmare, so I just quickly ran through to the other side and entered the solarium. Once inside, I quickly completed the puzzle and snatched up the Elder Scroll, thus completing my errand. After taking the scroll back to Parthenax, I started what would be the most painful fight in this entire run. A fight against Alduin on top of a mountain, where every single time I'd throw a pot, it would just go flying off a cliff. And, to add to my misery, Parthenax was less than useless, as he just used his fire breath, which Alduin has a 25% resistance to. Add that to his 80% damage reduction from all types, and well, yeah, he did fuck all to help me. Thanks, mate. I did, however, find out that if I threw the pot at his feet, it would get trapped under his head and it would be retrievable. Even with this trick though, it took forever as the pots did very little damage to him. I damn near threw in the towel as this fight genuinely takes ages and dying was such a setback. The throwing pots at his feet strategy did work, but it was far from optimal as it meant that his head was facing me, which got a little toasty. But after some experimentation, I found that if I threw pots at his hindquarters, his wings would act as a sort of backboard, catching the pots beneath him for my collection once he took back off. Thankfully though, right as I lost my last pot off the cliff, I managed to defeat him. Ironically, I think it was his own meteor that finished him off. Well, that or it was a scripted event. Either way, I didn't care. I was elated. I had to restart this battle so many times due to just simply running out of pots to throw at him. With Alduin defeated, he ran off, tail between his legs. I had a quick post-match debrief with Parthenax, who informed me that in order to get to Sovngarde, where Alduin was hiding out, I needed a dragon's help to fly me there. I still to this day do not understand why Parthenax doesn't just fly me there himself. Like, I get that he's old and damaged, but he is still clearly capable of flight. Given that Parthenax was again being useless, I had to get back to Whiterun to convince Jarl Borgriff to let me use Dragon's Reach to catch a dragon. Some convincing later, I called for a dragon, and after killing a guard, we managed to trap him. After yet more convincing, I managed to talk the dragon into flying me to Skaldarfen. When we arrived, I pretty much just ran straight inside, as I didn't want to lose any pots from fighting Draugrs on the exterior. It just wasn't worth it. Inside, the Draugr actually posed a bit of a problem. I died to them a few times, but eventually I picked them off one by one and just kept on pushing through. I was so close to finally finishing the challenge that I could almost taste it. After solving the puzzle and beating some more spiders, I came across the one thing that has actually stopped me in this run. Yet another web. I couldn't climb it, so fearing having to waste another couple of hours, I just cut the web. If anyone knows some ways around these, please leave a comment. I'd love to try out some of your ideas. Preferably not ones that are just massive sequence breaks though. And before someone says it, yes, I did try to use the basket click-through glitch, but it didn't work for me. But that could very well just be a skill issue. Anyways, with me having used the knife for the second and final time in this run, still not to deal damage though mind you, I headed up to the roof of the tomb to face off with the dragon priest Narkrin. Annoyingly, he was on the roof, so I did lose a couple of kettles to ricochet. Narkrin was a monster in terms of DPS, so I couldn't face off with him directly. Thankfully though, Bethesda put in these neat little columns that Narkrin apparently can't path around. So I just spent the entire fight peeking out and throwing a pot before moving back behind cover and healing. After whittling down his health for a few minutes, I managed to kill him. I took the staff off his corpse and used it to open the gate to Sovngarde. Once there, I headed through the mist straight towards the Hall of Valor. There was a short, quick jump scare from Alduin on my way there, but other than that, the journey was short and uneventful. I made it to the bridge and was met by Tsun. He refused to recognise my culinary skills as a rite of entry to the hall, so I was forced to use pot jutsu on him until he acquiesced. I thought the fight would be a lot longer, but it was honestly more difficult to stop my pots bouncing away. With my entry granted, I made my way across the skeletal bridge and into the hall to gather some friends for my final showdown with Alduin. We mustered outside and used our shouts to dispel Alduin's fog, drawing him out. The second fight with Alduin went pretty much the same as the first. I used my knowledge to just throw pots at his hindquarters to stop them ricocheting off into oblivion, and with some actually useful allies this time, we made short work of Alduin. With Alduin defeated, my challenge was complete. So, can you beat Skyrim with just a pot? Unfortunately not. But, you can beat it by only dealing damage with one. So, do with that what you will. I had a really great time making this video, so if any of you have any ideas for other challenges, please leave a comment and let me know. Thanks for watching.